Everyone. My experience with the divine will started about year 2020, and I can't even remember how I stumbled upon it, but I bought myself the book, The 24 Hours of the Passion of Our Lord Jesus Christ, by Luisa Picaretta, the little daughter of the divine will. And I was reading it during Lent when a friend, Anne, came up to me and told me about the online study with Father Dave. And then another friend, Jerry, he gives me a book on living in the divine will. So I'm like, okay, I just know this is really, really important for me, and especially for this time that we're in. And I jumped on board right away. So why? How come I knew? Well, I want to give you a little bit of my backstory, in specific 3 experiences that I've had on my faith journey, because I was not born into the Catholic faith. I chose it. I am a convert. And I'm usually one of those scary people you want to talk to, because as a mother and a convert, Catholic faith is just where we need to be. Well, I was actually born and baptized Protestant. My family owned a business, very hard-working parents. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. But as far as Christianity, I had very little of it in the home. Just taught the very basic prayers, the Our Father, grace before meals. So I basically lived most of my life just very independent as a young person. And, once or twice I had one of those, what am I doing here moments? And is this as good as it gets? And just didn't know where to turn. So I just kind of kept on working, kept on trudging. So it wasn't until I got married. I married an Italian Catholic, cradle Catholic, and he would read his Bible, and I would see him read his Bible, and I'm like, that's kind of interesting. And we never went to church, so I really didn't think about Christianity at all. And it wasn't until we started our family, and my hands were very full with a young baby and a very, very rambunctious 2-year-old little girl, and I was kind of getting to my wit's end. And I was very blessed to have a new neighbor move next door next to us, and her name was Anne as well. And she had 4 children. There was a family of 6. She was a stay-at-home mom. She homeschooled her children. These kids were amazing. They were friendly, they were kind, they were outgoing, they were so well-adjusted, and good manners. I loved good manners. So I had to ask her, how did she do it? I mean, these kids, they would stop and say grace and give thanks before they ate their lunch at our play dates. So I knew she was really onto something, and I needed some of it too. So I asked her, how are you doing it? And she directed me to my first Christian book, and it was called How to Shepherd a Child's Heart by Ted Tripp. I made a beeline to the Christian store, first time ever in one. And I'm astounded at all these books. So I buy the book and I read it right back to front. And I'm like, this is amazing. And I'm like, I literally raised my hands up and I'm like, God, if you are for real, I gotta know. I just want the truth. I want the truth for my kids so I can teach them so they have a good life. And they'll know more than what I did when I was their age. So you know what they say, be very careful what you ask for. So I literally develop a voracious appetite for the truth. And I'm going to the bookstores, I'm going to the library, I'm checking out books, I'm reading everything on religion, business, health, nutrition, psychology, you name it. As long as it was factual, I would read it. I mean, I would literally pick up books and I'm like, I can't get it in fast enough. It was really almost a little overwhelming, but I was remembering it all as well. So I then started dragging my family to all the churches. Because, now I got to find the church that makes me feel good, that felt right. My poor husband. He put up with me taking them to all these churches. And we did go to the Catholic Church occasionally, but in all honesty, I didn't like it. I didn't get it. I didn't understand why these Catholics were getting up and down and up and down. And seriously, and then I'd be like, I can't hear the priest. I can't hear him. I mean, literally, I think it's muffled in here. I said, there's bad acoustics. I just don't get it. So I went off, going to my other churches. And so quite literally, I'm in the local community church in Carlsbad, and I'm standing there with my husband, and it's praise and worship, and I feel deep in my gut, and I hear something in my head, and I'm like, enough, get down. And I'm like, get down, down. And I'm now having a conversation in my head with God. I can't get down here. They don't kneel here. And he was like, prostrate. I can't do that here. So I'm like, I'll tell you what, I'll go to the Catholic church and I will sign up there because they kneel over there. So I quite literally run to the Catholic church after this experience. It's like come to Jesus experience. And I sign up and I fully entered into the Catholic Church in 2006 after the RCIA program. So now I'm in and we're at Mass, and the irony of it all is that suddenly I realized that there was nothing wrong with the acoustics in the Catholic Church. Yeah, it was all me. Yeah, I just didn't want to hear. I didn't want to get it. And it goes to show you how much of your free will is really involved, to how much you're going to understand. And it's kind of funny. But I still was hungry. I needed more. So now I'm really on a roll. I'm hitting Bible study groups. I'm in front of every priest I can possibly hear. I am listening to speakers. Oh, the rosary. I had been warned about doing the rosary from a fallaway Catholic, and I was really scared to do it. But I thought, well, everyone seems so happy that prays the rosary, so I think I'm going to try it. So I started praying, and I'm like, oh, this is really good. You know, I found myself getting closer to Jesus in a more personal way. I found myself falling in love with him. So I'm praying the rosary, and then I'm like, okay, dum-dum, if I'm going to really get this right, I better get to daily Mass as much as I can. Because I'll tell you, of all the books I read, health, nutrition, you name it, I knew that I had to get the Eucharist. I had to eat it, and I had to eat it every day, because I knew if I tried to do it on my own humanity, I'm going to mess up. And I wanted to get it right for my kids. I wanted to get it right to whomever I'm supposed to speak with. So I'm at daily Mass, and I'm going to confession at least once a month, because I heard that was a good thing to do. And I'm getting my Eucharist. Well, after that, I started to teach the kids. So now I'm a catechist. I'm like, woohoo. Teenagers, give them to me. I'm like, I want them. Because I remember being that kid. I remember being a teenager. I remember the struggles. And I'm like, and I'm a mom. Catholicism is genius. And you know who first said that? Is Matthew Kelly. He says, the genius of Catholicism. I'm like, you better believe it. No meat on Friday? If you can't say no to a cheeseburger on a Friday, how are you going to say no to things that are really, really important? So, my poor family. Okay, we're not eating meat on Friday. You got to get to confession once a month. You know, Mass every Sunday. So this is the role I'm on, and now I have the teenagers. And like I said, I just wanted them to understand. And I have this epiphany that the soul knows where it came from. The soul was made and created by God to know him and to love him. So I believe if I just spoke the truth to these kids, that whether they wanted to hear it or not, the soul would start to wake up. The soul would be like, I've heard this somewhere before. So I wanted to appeal to their heart and their intellect. I wanted them to wake up their soul and feel moved through their will to turn back to Christ. And it was working. When you tell these kids that God doesn't want them to check their brains at the doorstep of the church, that he actually wants them to come in and understand, and not only understand, but know how to defend their faith, especially to their peers. I'm sorry. My time is up? That's the quickest 10 minutes I have ever... Wow, I'm sorry. Okay, I had more. I knew this was going to be a problem. Okay, there we go.
I was pointing at the time.
I thought I did.
I wanted to say, go ahead and stay longer. I just want to first pray before I begin, because everything's been changed since last night. So, Lord, I know you're here, and I know you're with each and every one of us. Lord, I know you're with me, and I know that what you're asking of me, I don't even know. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why. I don't even know what I'm going to say when I put so much time into preparation. All I know, it was all my heart. I just wanted to be you. I don't want anything to come out of me that is not you. I don't want anything but you. Please speak in my speaking, gaze in my gazing. Be with me even in my breathing. I only want to say what you wanted me to say. Amen. I've been on a journey on this talk, and I don't know what it is about, but I've also been on a journey the last few years where the Lord started working on me with courage. And it began when I was listening to Frances Hogan's Revelations course. And when we got to the last chapter, and she came in, and you know how Frances is for those who have heard her, and she said, the number one baddie, and I went, Hitler, and I named them all off, is those who walked with him, those who loved him, and they didn't have courage. The number two baddie is those who were in the community who turned in those who were the leaders. And it hasn't left it's been something in my heart that stayed with me. And I heard, Pat, you're going to go down. Because I went to church, it was during COVID. I went to church, and Father Alex was time we were teaching on the Revelations. And one of his homilies, he started talking about the Antichrist. And he said, when the Antichrist comes, he's going to be so smooth. And he said, so many are going to follow. And that's why they want to get us in our head. They don't want us in doing things like we're doing here today, for sure. They want to keep us so that we can't touch our soul. We can't hear God down here. And they're working hard, even within the church, to get us there. And I said, Lord, I am going to fall. And I'm not going to go to the rest of the journey there, but the Lord took me through a deep, deep healing. And again, it was the courage. Since that time, I could not stand up to a priest, attorney, doctors, you name them. I would just become a little much afraid, which is what I was in my early days of the faith. And so I'm going, Lord, what is going on? The night before last, I had gone through talks and books on the difference of doing God's will and living in God's will. And I had these papers all over the place. And then last week, my sister, who's the dearest friend I could ever have, got sick and she died. And it was like, I'm sitting there, I'm saying, Lord, am I in grief? But I said, no, you took me through at the Mass on Sunday. He gave me, all through Mass, I was crying, but he was showing our life. He showed my sister taking us from the abused home and taking me down to church. And then we had the procession. And the procession was what my sister would take me to everyone that ever existed. And it was like, by the time I left Mass, I gave my sister to him. And the peace that came, I was not like I don't miss her, but it's not there. So I'm looking at this and saying, no, I really gave you my sister. And he said, just trust. I'm sitting there and I don't even know. And I didn't even smart enough to take notes because at least I have someone to help me. I was like, why didn't I think of what Father Dave did? And I keep hearing, trust me. And I said, what I think I heard is, I want them to see what I want of each and every one of you. That you don't need to know what you're going to say. You don't need to do anything but have me. When you speak, know I'm going to be there. And the other subject I'm going to touch on is trust. Because I happen to love Father Iannucci a lot. Because I think when Father Iannucci says something, well, he's very much like him, you know it's the truth and you know you're safe. You're not going to hurt the cause of Louisa because they're straight arrows. I've always called Father Dave that. He's a straight arrow as long as I've known him. And it's like, it was a talk on trust. And that's one part of it. In fact, I'm hearing that's where I'm going to begin. Because I guess this is what it's going to be. But I do have notes because when you're 86, if you don't have notes, you would be, I don't know what, I can't even find the paper. But anyway, Father Iannucci began this talk with something. If I listened to what else is Father Iannucci saying when I listened to him. What is he trying to say to us at another level? But he began with the most underrated, overlooked virtue in the history of Christianity. Think about that. Is trust. And he said, to live in the divine will, you cannot unless you have learned and walked and trusted. Trust is a basic part of living in the divine will. If I don't trust that God's going to be with me when I get up here, or he's going to be with me when I'm whatever, I love walking with him. I so many times walk down the hall in my home and I'll go, it's fun living with you. At times it is. Because I'm doing something and all of a sudden it's answered. And I'm going, oh, you're good. I never thought I'd be talking to God this way, but I found that he really likes us to be who we are. And I'm a Pat, he's a Dave, and he's a Steve, and we're each different. It's like when we say our prayers. But one of the things that's been really hard for me, my friend Steve, he can create the most beautiful prayers I've ever heard. I want that. I want it so badly. But guess what? I have a really hard time composing the prayers. I can say a Pat prayer, but to try to get all the elements and everything in the right order, I struggle. And I found there where the Lord said, I know the prayers that are beautiful, and I like those, and I want those, but I want to hear you. I want to hear you, your voice. I want to know it's you, and I want to hear your voice. I don't want them all to be beautiful prayers that I love, but I want to hear you. And I think, but there's so much better prayers. And I think there's others in here that maybe think that too. Remember, he wants to hear us. Father Olin Brown one time said something, and at first I'm looking and thinking, what in the heck is he saying? But he brought this paper out, and he had a big circle, and that's God. And then he had over here Jesus, and then he had Mary, and he had Louisa, and then he had a little circle, and that was me, say. And then he gave Father Dave a paper, and then he gave that person a paper. And I'm thinking, what is he doing? And he said, every one of us have Jesus. That circle, the eternal now, they were there with God. Every one of us have Jesus. He said, what are you doing by putting down maybe this person or that person? They have Jesus. Don't you think Jesus can take care of them? And then you start going around with other things like that, and I thought, wow, that's why I say, Jesus, you take care of it. It was like, oh my gosh, that novena is what Father Owen's talking about. You and I can't do it. Now, if we hear the Lord tell us to go say something to one of you, that's a different thing. But when we decide, it's like my granddaughter, when my husband had just died and I moved right in a house right by them, and she got to know me pretty well. And I'm daily Mass most of my life, and I love you, Chris, and holy, I'm always in the chapel. And she said, Grandma, you're a real judge. They know they can be honest with me. And I'm like, ew, okay. It was like the knife went inside. And she showed me I had such a judgment on tattoos. I couldn't see the person. I didn't even try to find Jesus when somebody special was loaded. All I could think of was their skin and how they're living and what they're going to do later when they grow up and all these kinds of things. I have to tell you, I have had some of the most unbelievable experiences with people with tattoos because I've made it a point to find Jesus in them. I go somewhere and I walk through Costco all of a sudden I'm having a great conversation with them and get to Jesus. Trust. So I am going to get back to this. I'm a little bit than my straight arrow made. But it's like, I have done my homework. But it's like what it said there. He says, it does not come to us through our birth. It does not come to us through the sacraments. This is a gift. It's not new, it's a virtue, but this is a gift that is given from above. It does not come, no. How to dispose ourselves in order to receive it. We all know that word dispose. If any of us been in the divine will, I mean, I don't know how many weeks I studied on how to dispose, how do we be disposed. Another thing I've learned though, the Lord really likes when we keep telling him that we really want to live in the divine will. He doesn't think we're really nagging at him. In fact, I even have this prayer every day. There's 6 of them, I think, in it. And it's a prayer to give our will. To give God our will. And then you pray each one of them 3 times. And it's like, I want him to know I mean it. It's like, the more I'm getting to know him, I'm knowing he doesn't get tired of like, oh, Pat, you told me once. Come on, shut up. He went, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. When I think you tell me enough and you really want it, and I think it's good for you, I'll give it to you. But don't stop telling me. I trust that. I trust that the God I believe in wants to hear me, and he can hear me over and over because he loves me. And he knows that the very best thing for me is his will. That's why he created all of us. He knows that's why. I was sitting there and thinking, Lord, I used to be, oh my gosh, anxiety loaded. If I was sitting in that chair that long and listened to Steve Fauché, which he's such a brother in the Lord, and then listen to him, and then sitting there going, and I'm a blank slate. I mean, it was like I would have been doing something other than what I was doing. He wants us to get to that place where we can trust him. There are no coincidences. That's my theme song. I have to admit, from the day I heard that, I don't even remember where I heard it in the volumes, it was like, oh my gosh, you spill a pot of coffee on you, there's no coincidence. Lord uses for every person that's out there. And it's like the other day, I'm coming home and there's this mother's back on this person's yard and the father's over here, and you can tell that it's probably not a pleasant conversation. It's like this is what he wants us to do, and right away, Lord, for every couple, for everyone, throughout time, where they're lost sight of each other, Lord, like that couple, and you turn it into a prayer. That's the way he wants us living. Anything you see, I don't have to run over there and try to change. I'm a therapist. I'm going over and tell them what they need to do. I gave them the best thing I could. That's what divine will is about. That's what he's calling us to. It's like, we don't care. If he calls me to do something, and I really believe it's from him, I really don't care if that person likes me as long as I do it lovingly. I never thought I would not care what people thought of me. I said to him last night, I said, Lord, if I stand up there and I fall flat on my face, it's okay. If that's what you want, that's what I want. I want only what you want. I want that with every single thing I do. Because You know what's right for me. We have a joke in our family. It's kind of like someone says something and say, is it worth going to purgatory a little longer for that? No, I think, wake up. Wake up. Those little resentments, those little, we got to get out. That's what he's about. That's what divine will is about. It's a life, living, walking every day. I mean, you go to bed, and you're talking with, you get up. Another funny thing this morning, you know what happened? I was up till 3 o'clock again, trying to make sure I could, because nothing seemed right. It was like a dried pages, dried everything. I woke up with my granddaughter standing over my bed, who came home from the hospital, saying, Grandma, you go to church every day, aren't you going to get up? I learned. And I said, no coincidences. No coincidences. So going back to the talk, which it doesn't sound like it, for all the hours I put in this research, but you know what? I loved every minute of it. I buried myself in the volumes. I could have stayed there for a month and had nobody disturb me, and I would have been one happy person. He says, and this is something I really didn't think about it either, and we have to read this because right now my eyes aren't really on it. One thing he says, that Jesus reveals the most perfect love is found in true trust. That one must have in the object of one's love, even if it appears the object of one's love is lost. More than ever is the time to prove the soul's living trust. Trust is the easiest means to take possession of that which one ardently desires. It's a shortcut, a short path, an easy way to live in the divine will. And I have the volume things here, but I'm not going to bother. Faith makes one know God. That's what our church is doing, a lot of knowing. Join groups, we're going to get our head, we're going to develop, we're going to no, we're going to, all these facts, and I can give them now, I feel really good. Trust finds God. Never thought about that. Trust finds God. And he says faith is cognitive knowledge. That's what we're getting a lot of, aren't we? Trust is experiential knowledge. Without trust, faith is sterile. That's a pretty strong word, isn't it? Even if immense riches, without trust, you're poor. That's how important trust is what he's saying. Don't you know lack of trust paralyzes the soul? Paralyzes. You cannot be true in true humility. I never thought of this one, without trust. Humility without trust is a false virtue. Wow. So basically, I'm not going to do the rest on that because I have no idea where my time is going. I'm going to go to one of the other ones. I probably should go to the ones on my topic because I may not get to these. I'm hearing that. Okay, we're going to go now with soul lives from the human will. You know, when people come to the divine will, and I remember me because I was so deep in my faith. I mean, I was a happy camper. I'm a Curseist, I'm a charismatic per se. That's where him and I got together. And basically, there's, divine mercy and all these things. So, my sister, divine will, but she gave me the book of the Passion. I started praying that. I have not missed a day. And it's been over 5 years or so. That book is a book that, to me, I don't want a day without the Passion book. Because when I read it, I don't want to say read, when I pray the Passion, it's like that is the way into the living in the divine will also. It's a gift. And no matter what time I come home or that, I will not miss my reading. And I'm not saying this in a way of bragging. It's a way of what God has done. And he's saying, you want me, be with me in my passion. Because that's where I'm going to meet you. So often when people come, it's like they get attached to their, whatever we're in, Carmelites, wherever it is. And it's hard. It's like, I don't want to be able to let go of something that's so beautiful. Because these are good things. They're holy things. Walking the way of Carmel is the best way to be able to go in the divine will. I can't think of any better preparation than someone who is in Carmelites or Benedictines, whatever. But it's a devotional practice, and there are certain shortcomings in it. When we pray, and we pray in the divine will, because it has an eternal value. And you know what? Lord, right away, the enemy knows how to work on me. And I definitely saw that several people walked out. And I know, and right away, it'd be very easy to say, oh gosh, you did it. And it's like, Lord, you be with them because they're beautiful. They're yours. And I trust that. He'll take care of them. They got him. I got him. I don't have to go. Does that make sense how that helps us? I give them to Jesus. I give anything, anyone, because that's the greatest gift we can give them. And basically, back to where I am, and I know right now I'm not keeping on here, but can I just stop and pray? Lord, I want you. I want you, and I want you alone. Please be with me. Let me not get in the way of what you would want to do. I don't want to distract what you have, because each one of us, are such treasures to you. And I want what you have for this time to be what they get. So it says, what does Jesus mean when he says the virtues give us some satisfaction? Have you ever thought about that? The virtues give us some satisfaction. That the virtues practiced on earth are rarely exempt from human purposes. And he says, coming up, we were trained for self-examination. Have I been patient? Have I done this? Where am I focusing? I'm focusing on, oh my gosh, Pat, did you see what you did? You did. A lot of that stuff was coming in from the dark side also. It wasn't just from Jesus. It was to keep me down, to keep me too focused. We don't have to do that in the Bible. I have what I call Blessed Dina. I love Dina. I can't think of her name right now. She's blessed from Canada. You probably know her name. But I read her book, and what she did when she fell, she'd go, Jesus, I love you, I love you, I love you, Jesus. I wouldn't even be here if I hadn't done that, because I love you, I love you, I love you. And then she knows, he says, go on. Keep your eyes on me, Dina. I just want you with your eyes on me. Go on. You're already done. You mean I don't have to do a little more of this? No. I love the fact that when I fall, in fact, it says, we fall down, we stand up. We fall down, we stand up. This was an abbot, and it's in a song, one of the Christian singers. And it was like, I was listening to a talk, and this priest was talking about this nun who basically just could not accept confession. She kept feeling, she was so bad, she was so bad, she was so bad. So they came up to him. I don't know whether it was Father Blada or someone like that. And she said, please pray for me, because she said, I just so... And so he came back. He prayed to the Lord. He said, the Lord said, when you take, in other words, yourself away from me, that sin does not bother me as much as that you left me. That you're in anxiety which blocks me being closer and giving you strength and being with you. rise up here. And it's symbolic. You don't have to do that. People look at you crazy. But what I'm saying is, not down here we're getting information which often comes from a source which is not God. This is the way we walk in the divine will. This is the difference when, even in the beautiful doing God's will, it's still the word doing. Doing is me doing it. I got to say all this. I got to do all this because I got to do this because I love you, Lord. I don't even know if we said I love you. I used to say that the people, I ran the chapel at St. Teresa for 21 years, the Adoration Chapel. I used to say to them, and they come, and I'd say, make sure when you open the door, you say, I love you. Tell him you love him. When you open that door, say, Jesus, I love you. I'm coming. I'm coming to see you. Because he says, that's what he wants. And someone would come back to me and they said, you know, I tried that. Sure. I really felt that he did feel it. I walk in the chapel every morning now that's not perpetual. I'm the first one there. It is like, it's like, I feel the Lord saying, thank you. I cannot not go. Because living in the divine will is us doing everything. Is my time up? Okay, I'm sorry. You know what? I guess what I merely was here to say is living in the divine will is watching someone who basically didn't even know what she's doing, and she was practicing, trying to live into his will in front of you, no matter if she was a big disaster or not, because all that matters with him is that I did what I was supposed to do. And if somebody else doesn't, it's okay, guys, because people aren't going to always see that what we do. What matters is him and Mama. That's all that